Hi, I'm Rachel, and welcome to my NaNoWriMo 2022 Week 3 vlog. This past week has definitely been a little more wintry or colder anyway weather than the week previous. Definitely getting some chilliness, although it feels like the weather goes up and down so much that I never know exactly what to wear or what type of, overcoat to wear sort of thing, but what can you do? But the NaNoWriMo goals more or less stay the same, with the whole 1667 words per day to meet and that sort of thing. And in fact, I am off after filming this bit to go to my first official write-in of the year, which is exciting. It's organized by the DC Municipal Liaison at a local bookstore. Just a 2-hour write-in with people from the community. I'm excited. I've been less connected this year and last year, I guess, to the nano community locally. I mean, part of that had to do with COVID and much less going on in person. Also, since I joined the DC Writer Salon, which is my, regular routine, in-place writing group, I don't feel as much need or don't even have as much time to, take part in these write-ins or things like that. My needs are different, I guess, but there is something so special about meeting people solely for this purpose, and like that's the only thing you have in common with them, or the way that you know them really, is that we all decided to do this crazy project together. So that's always a little bit fun. But I am oversaturated with writing groups right now, I think. I also have my beta reading group. And in fact, I have to finish my comments and submit, my thoughts on their critique chapters by tonight. So there's that as well, because we are meeting over Zoom on Wednesday to go over each other's chapters. So this is a newer group that I joined, and I am really glad I joined it because it jump-started my fantasy writing again, my fantasy project, which, as a rebel, I didn't start on page one, with this project in November. I've actually been working on it for a couple of years, and I do feel like being part of this group is propelling me to keep with it at a better pace, let's hope. So yeah, got a lot of writing juggling balls up in the air right now. And I guess I should remind myself, now that we're reaching mid-month anyway and things are, getting harder and we're feeling the strain, to, be nice to yourself, to pat yourself on the back for all of the wins and all of the check marks, and hopefully to have some fun along the way. So I just found out about this a few days ago. This is rather embarrassing. Here I am at the Nano Messages page, for headquarters in my 2 regions. And like the first page is always just announcements. And I didn't understand how people would be able to post messages, because all I would see is this like page of announcements. And I realized that all I have to do is click, this thing at the top, and suddenly, ta-da! Here we are with all of the messages from everyone. So that's very exciting, and I posted one at the very bottom here because I did just get back from the write-in, which was really fun, and very glad that I went. And as I wrote here, the Pomodoro technique actually really worked well for me. Usually I don't write a lot, I feel like, at write-ins, but this time I was able to, or it could be the lack of internet. But anyway, I'm very excited by, this streamlined sort of chat section for, local regions, because I always felt a little overwhelmed by the forums, especially like the new system they did a couple of years ago and have initiated since then. Good morning. It is the start of another work week, and sadly, this week isn't a holiday week, so I'll have to work 5 days in a row. All this time spent away from my nanoing. But that being said, as usual, I'm starting off for Monday, at the end of Monday, getting to go to my writing salon session. And my goal for the writing salon session is to start my next chapter. Although technically speaking, I haven't quite finished chapter 28 yet. I just have one final little mini scene. So I mean, I almost got there last night, but I think I just have one final little mini scene. I hope I don't go too overboard with writing it or anything. Just because by this point I want to move on, no more, wanderings as I tend to do, especially with world building. I want to move on to chapter 29, which is my midpoint chapter. I've been meaning to get here for a longer time than Nano, so I'm nervous and excited, and I want to at least start that during the salon, so that means I need to quickly finish chapter 28 and then start chapter 29, and that is my goal for myself and what I'm holding myself accountable to for my fantasy project. I'm still a proud rebel, and in fact most of the people I went to my Nano write-in last night were being rebellious in one way or another, not writing novels or not going for the 50K or whatever, juggling projects like I am, but I want the fantasy project to take up a significant part. So yeah, that's my goal. I hope I don't freak myself out too much. I think one thing that happened, last night I sat down and I actually wrote, and that's when the inner editor and the self-critiquer came out to say, what are you doing? And I can't have that person in my head. I just have to write and be okay with the fact that it is very much a rough draft. And it's more like sort of getting the flow and knowing that you might change almost all of the words, just something like that. Oh boy, has this good night gotten away from me. Did I finish chapter 28 of my fantasy project? Yes! Did I start chapter 29 of my fantasy project? No! Although I suppose the positive outcome of all of this meandering during Nano is more words. I mean, I spent time at the salon writing and rewriting scenes and putting in way too much on-the-nose emotional thought processes and rambling dialogue and all of that, kind of trying to write my way into whatever the hell I was trying to say, which, makes me nervous for, doing edits and so forth, but, as we always say about Nano, it's about getting the words on the page, and it's easier to edit, a rambly bad page than a blank page, so I'm ultimately hopeful that future me can sort this out. Good luck, self. And now, off to bed. I'm working from home this morning, which is actually a first for me. Usually I have to be on site, but today I have a couple of reports I can complete from here. And I also decided I can take the time then to check out the 2022 Goodreads Choice Awards, which were recently posted. The long lists were posted, so I'm excited for this. I know this is all very silly and just a big silly popularity contest, but I have a lot of fun with this, so I just want to see. This is my first time checking out what the books will be and what I think of them. So here, let me, on my iPad, and okay, Goodreads Choice 2022. Okay, what are these books? All right, I'm going to start with fiction. All right, Frederick Bachman. Yep. The Elizabeth Strout book is on there. There's the Demon Copperhead by Barbara Kingsolver. I figured that would be on there. Okay, I'm recognizing some titles. I read an Emma Stroud before. There's Hanya Yanagihara. Celeste Ng is on there. Up, and here we go. I see Tomorrow by Gabrielle Zevin, which in fact I just received a notice from my library that I can go get that audiobook now, so I definitely think I want to read that one at least before, this is actually the only book on here that I will have read, I think, so I want to be able to read it and see if I want to vote for it. I do want to read Demon Copperhead, it's just going to take a while for it to get to me, so there's that. Hopefully I'll like Tomorrow. Okay, my next category is historical fiction. There's the Isabel Allende, and the Cormac McCarthy, there's the Maggie O'Farrell, Diana Gabaldon, there's Taylor Jenkins Reid's book. I'm recognizing a lot of titles here. We have The Young Mungo. Is there anything I've read? I'm just not all that popular, I guess, with my taste sometimes. Yeah, I don't think there's anything in historical fiction that I've read or I think I will read, certainly not this month. So there's that. So I guess not so much going with the historical fiction. Probably will end up reading some of this for the BookTube prize, I assume. Who knows? Okay, fantasy. I'm expecting to be more well-versed here. Well, not the Naomi Novik. No, not so far. I mean, I recognize all the titles at top. All right, we got, Olive Blake is a title, a person I know now. Well, Daughter of the Moon Goddess, I've heard of that. Ooh, Thistlefoot is a book I definitely do want to read. I'm not going to get to it, I don't think, this year, but I do want to read that book because it has Jewish influence. I even went to see Chelsea Abdullah for the Stardust Thief at the National Book Fest, so maybe I should try to get to her book. I'm not sure. There's Babel, which has been hugely popular on BookTube, and like I see, recognize a couple other covers. But oh my goodness, I haven't actually read any of these, have I? Oh my gosh, I can't believe it. I thought I'd be a little more well-versed, I guess, in fantasy. Now I'm trying to even remember what I read for fantasy in here. What did I read for fantasy? I guess I'll have to check, but none of these books. Oh my, so much for, being in the know for this one. But, okay, hopefully I'll do better with science fiction. In fact, I'm pretty sure the Leviathan Falls has to be on there, right? I mean, come on, it has to be on there. All right, so yeah, here's sci-fi. I recognize Ocean's Echo, especially, and of course, Nona the Ninth. There it is, Leviathan Falls. I've read that. That's definitely the one I'm going to be voting for. Genesis of Misery. Oh my gosh, yeah, there's the John Scalzi one. Yeah, and then there's a bunch of other stuff I kind of recognize, but I haven't. Oh, Atomic Anna. Oh, what? Yeah, I think I actually read that one technically for historical fiction, even though, it doesn't really count and it has that time travel element. But I'm going to vote for, Leviathan Falls instead. And more controversially, or more conflicted, I guess, about this, but there's Sea of Tranquility, which I also did like. But I'm doing a little better with sci-fi. I'm going to go to debut novel. Let's see what's going on here. I mean, I'm recognizing these titles. There's Daughter of the Moon Goddess again. I haven't read any of them. Oh, I have! Oh, look, there's Our Wives Under the Sea, which I think I read that for fiction, but once it's a debut, it's in debut, I could vote for that. I really like that one. Oh, I'm excited. It's also silly. And there's Thistlefoot again. Okay. I am off the clock now and definitely reading Backlist, in a type of book that probably wouldn't get nominated for a popularity contest because it is self-published. So I'm grateful I found it through the Jewish Book Council so that I get to read something a little off the beaten path. This is Shelter Us by Laura Nicole Diamond, published by She Writes Press a handful of years ago. It's a literary novel about a woman, a stay-at-home mother, who is grieving the loss of her baby daughter who died a couple of years ago. And she is trying to take care of her sons and trying to be there, emotionally and physically for her family, but it goes into the grief of what it is to lose a child, and her husband Robert is dealing with it in his own way too. I really like that part. And then she sort of randomly comes across this homeless woman, like a young mother and her toddler son, and grows obsessed with this woman and about how it would be to help them and how that could be, therapeutic for her. And then but that's not the only big part of the story. I guess the bigger part is really about Sarah and her family and how she relates to them. And so there's some complexity, I think, to those emotions that I really like. There's some other things I don't think worked as well. Some of the secondary characters were really way too one-dimensional for me, and I feel like this is a type of book that some people really wouldn't like because Sarah and her husband don't talk to each other, and they're not honest with each other, and I feel like that's very human, but at the same time, within the confines of this narrative, Diamond obviously wanted to, interrogate that idea and wouldn't let the characters off the hook without ultimately having their secrets revealed. And I feel like it was frustrating to read them, especially Sarah, because it seems like she didn't fully account for her own past misdeeds. Maybe I'm still thinking too much about the idea of repentance for my High Holidays reading and all of that. And speaking of such, this was in the Jewish Book Council, but it's very, very nominally Jewish. An interesting story. I felt like the real strengths were, I guess, in interrogating the grief and how it manifests in the modern day of what's going on with Sarah and her family, and then there were some character and plot points which were a little more iffy, but overall I'm glad I read this. I just got off of a Zoom call with my beta reading group for the very fantasy novel that I am writing. In fact, this group is a bunch of science fiction and fantasy writers. We all have novels under our wings and are slowly sharing them with each other. We're in early stages. I'm, of course, being a nano rebel and have been working on the middle of my novel. The beginning has been a little more set, thank goodness, because I can't be sharing what I'm writing with them right now. And you'd think it's not a good time to get feedback, I suppose, on the beginning. Definitely not a good time for the inner editor, but actually this was really helpful to me. In fact, something came up, like a question came up about how I was differentiating people, and some of the ridiculous world-building researchy stuff I've been talking about on these blogs, I think it'll help out to clarify some things. So I'm kind of feeling like, I'm charting the secret recipe here or something like that. And maybe that's a bit extreme to be that confident, but this was actually a very productive, I don't know, it was productive. It was so much about craft and lifting each other up, and I'm really grateful that I joined this group. I think it actually really helped save this novel from the doldrums. I'd been really flailing with it for a while, and now I'm trying to be much more proactive again. I have a lot of faith in my story, even as I'm struggling in the middle. So anyway, enough of the love fest here, because that means I did take a few hours tonight to, meet with them, and now I have to get back to the word count for Nano, and I am behind. Yesterday I was supposed to reach the halfway point at the 25K. I'm not quite there yet. I think I can catch up. I think good things are on the horizon. But yeah, anyway, time to get back to writing.
Your fictional world, what would your experience be? And depending on the world, would you survive? There's no shame if you won't.
Yeah, considering a lot of you are killing your characters, I'm kind of worried for y'all. You showed up in your world.
I came up with this prompt and I still don't know the answer to this question. I think if I went into my world, just as is, then I probably would die. But if I had the magic that all the other characters do, then I think I'd be fine.
I'm trying to think. I feel because I do the whole someone gets whisked away to another world thing, and I'm honestly, I feel like they just ignore me, because I wouldn't get whisked away. I'd just be stuck in normal world, and I'd be yay.
Knowing my luck, I'd be fantasy world, fantasy world, fantasy world, and then my brother would be the one whisked to fantasy world. He's I don't want to be here.
That would be a fun story though, an author wants to go to their own world, but their sibling goes there.
I got a package the other day, and inside is my Xena Season 4 DVD set. I've been doing a bit of a slow rewatch of Xena, but indeed I am very excited to have this collection and to finally start my Season 4 rewatch. Xena is one of my favorite television shows, one of the sword and sorcery fantasy that I grew up with, and a reminder in that vein about when I loved fantasy that maybe wasn't so self-serious. Although even I think with Xena, even I took that too seriously sometimes and didn't like some of the goofier episodes as much. And certainly got very invested in some of the dramatic relationships, and especially the Xena Gabrielle subtext. I don't know, it's just something to think about because my own fantasy novel is pretty serious, I think. I really want to go deep into big questions and themes about, life and culture and warfare and all that sort of stuff. And, Xena was dealing with a redemptive arc, so there's that. But, she also had a fair bit of fun along the way. So perhaps something to keep in mind as I go forward. And because, if you get too self-serious, maybe you get too bogged down, and that's definitely not good for the writing. But yes, I'm very glad to have this and hope to keep watching soon. Transitioning into contemporary television of right now, Fleischman in Trouble just dropped on Hulu. Or rather, I should say the first 2 episodes of Fleischman in Trouble dropped on Hulu. The first 2 of 8 total, I believe, in this miniseries. This is the adaptation of a novel by Taffy Brodesser-Akner, which in fact I was reading 3 years ago during NaNoWriMo. In fact, I came across a quote I pulled out of the novel 3 years ago to the day on Facebook. So anyway, I don't know, I'm really interested in this. I was really compelled by that book, although I feel like I argued with it a lot too. Sometimes I think I got what she was trying to do, and sometimes it didn't quite work for me, but it's the story of the devolvement of a marriage, and first you get it from Fleischman's point of view, and then you get it from the point of view of his wife, and there's some commentary in there about how men's stories are sort of the ones that are seen as more, universally human, whereas women are sort of typecast by gender and diminished in a way, their emotions and feelings and all of that. And all of the characters were just so complex, and I thought that the writing was really good and engaging. I don't know, I wonder if I had a better opinion of this than a lot of other people, although I do think the book did make it to the Goodreads Choice Awards, although I don't think it made it that far. But I really liked it. I'm hoping that the miniseries does good things. I guess I'll have to see. And finally, in terms of watching something right here, right now, earlier today, Marissa Meyer did her probably annual by now writing chat with NaNoWriMo. She was one of the earliest Rhymos to get published and is certainly still one of the most famous and very involved in the community. I keep forgetting how involved she is. And now she's making me feel a little better about my crazy attempt at outlining and writing and going back and forth like a mad woman.
So there's this question of always like, are you a planner, a pantser, a plancer? And I'm just curious like how that has perhaps evolved in your life, how the degree of planning or pantsing, and how you were that young fanfic writer to the writer you are now, how you approach novel writing.
Yeah, I mean, when in my early days, when I was doing just strictly short stories, I think it was mostly pantsing. I would get an idea and I would sit down and I would write it, and they'd be, maybe only 15 or 20 pages early on. And so my brain could hold enough information to get me through that complete story. But as soon as my stories got longer to the point where now we're writing chapters, I became an outline writer really, really early on, and would always have a plan. I don't do super detailed outlines, maybe just a sentence or two per chapter or per scene, just enough that I have an idea of where the story is heading. And it always changes. You have that initial outline, you have that initial plan, and then you start writing and you uncover something and you're like, wait, it'd be better if we did this instead, or oh, I can combine these two elements together into one scene, or maybe, no, I actually need multiple chapters to explore this further. So I give myself a lot of leeway to, I don't have to stick to the outline, but I find so much comfort in knowing that there's a plan so that it kind of keeps me from feeling that anxiety of but what if the story just doesn't work? What if I get halfway through and then I'm just stuck and I have no idea where I'm going to go from there? So I really like knowing that there's some plan guiding me along. Yeah.
That's cool. I like how the plan, sometimes I think the problem with plans is that people can think they're too rigid, that they're done and they have to follow the plan. So I like how the plan is constantly morphing and you're kind of finding the story in the plan.
Yeah.
And I just
redo my outlines constantly. Like I'll write a few chapters and then go tweak the outline. And then I write a little bit more and then I tweak the outline. So it's very fluid.
Yeah, and that's a good way to get through this muddy middle too, I think, is to keep asking yourself, well, what if my characters do this? What if we go beyond the plan? Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Cool, thank you.
Good morning. It is a weekend again, which means I'm heading to my writing salon in the afternoon, and I am definitely no holds barred, meaning to tackle chapter 29, which is my midpoint chapter, and I think I've been terrified of for a long time now. Especially because I'm introducing a pivotal character who is gonna have some significance in the rest of the book, and certainly more so if I actually write this as like, a series of some sort, but let's not get too ahead of ourselves, even though I vaguely have ideas for other books. But anyway, getting back on target, I have to write the midpoint chapter, and no pussyfooting around this. It just has to get done. And then next time, once this chapter is finished, it'll be downhill, right? I will be in Act 2B. The chapter count will be going down and down until I reach the end, and maybe it'll all be a little bit easier because I've built up so much that I'll be changing less of my outline this time around. I guess we'll have to see, but first I do have to get through this chapter, so that is my goal, is to, start, not finish necessarily, but certainly start chapter 29, start the midpoint chapter at the salon, and I should get up and moving right now because it is a hectic day where I live. The county's Thanksgiving parade is like rolling down the street right outside in my downtown area, so there's road closures and all sorts of things, and I should make sure that I can, move around through public transportation the way I hope to and all of that. Thank goodness I don't have to worry about a car because I'm pretty sure that it'll be a mess to get a car out. But that is my plan for today. I'm pretty proud of the work I got done at the salon, actually. I definitely didn't finish, but definitely started my midpoint chapter. Got a lot of words into it. Kept the inner editor at bay enough, at least, to write them, even if I knew the words are kind of crap. But that's what Nano's all about, after all, and I feel like I'm making progress in the general arc of my story, so ending on a positive here, I think. And speaking of ending on a positive, I just finished this book, Orphan Number 8 by Kim Van Alchemady, and it was a really good book. This is kind of book club fiction. It's propulsive mainstream fiction, a historical novel that takes place, one timeline takes place in 1919 through the 1920s, and the other one takes place in 1954. And the premise is we're following a young girl to young woman named Rachel Rabinowitz. Her parents are, torn from her in, this tragic accident. She and her brother are sent to a foster home situation in 1919. Well, really an orphanage, I should say. And but Rachel is young enough that she has to go to a infant's home. She's about 4, and at the home, there's experiments being done with this new X-ray technology, and she is unwittingly being experimented on to see if X-rays can, work as procedures like for removing tonsils and that sort of thing. And here she is, this orphaned girl, being used as material, as they call it. Although at the time she, of course, has no idea, but it has a huge effect on her life. The X-rays give her alopecia, and she is ultimately reunited with her brother at the orphanage where he's been living, and we follow her life in that timeline. And then in the 1954 timeline, she is working as a nurse in an old person's home and comes across the doctor who did these experiments on her, and memories are reawakened, and then she does the research to realize that she wasn't, being treated for an illness as she had thought for, over 30 years, but she was experimented on, and in fact, a recent doctor's visit confirmed that she had a tumor in her breast, which was most likely caused by this, exposure to radiation when she was 4. And so the premise of the novel is like, will she take her revenge on this elderly patient who herself is dying of bone cancer, probably inflicted by her work with these x-ray machines. And yes, the doctor was a woman in 1919, so there's a lot of pieces to this story. It's not a thriller novel. It's not necessarily about vengeance entirely. There's a lot of complicated realities at play and a lot of great characters and a lot of Jewish history, which I love as well. It was really a book that compelled me and made me think a whole lot. I have some quibbles with a couple of convenient plot points, and one moment in the present day storyline that was used as a gotcha moment. It's ultimately a small quibble after all, and yeah, I think this was a really thoughtful, compelling book, and thus, with good writing and the power of storytelling behind me, a great way to sign off on this vlog as well.